Before I even got up here, people quieted right down the expectation, the excitement, the energy, the mystery. What's going to happen is poetry at 3 at 7 o'clock. I'm Star Coulbrooke. I'm the Logan City Poet Laureate and coordinator of Helicon West. And I'm here tonight to welcome you to one of the best ever, I'm sure, because every time we have it, it's the best ever, right? Yeah. Poetry at 3 is tonight, and that's my poetry group, and this is our 19th annual. So we've been reading poetry once a year for you all, maybe not all of you, but a lot of people, since 2000. I have some announcements tonight, and then I'm turning it over to Rob, who is going to be our MC tonight. I would first like to, if I can find all the stuff that I'm supposed to do, announce the next event. The next event at Helicon West is not going to be here in the Logan Library. It's going to be in the Merrill Kazare Library, room 101, and it's the Creative Writing Contest for USU. And so our Creative Writing Contest winners are going to be reading next time. This is an enormous event. We always draw about 100 people or so. We have treats, we have Cafe Ibis again, coffee. And these winners, along with the art winners, are going to be reading and showing their work. So this will be on April 25th at 7 o'clock at the Merrill Kazare Library on the USU campus. Next announcement. We're going to have the next Poet Laureate of Logan City, Utah. We're taking nominations as we speak. So if you know someone who lives or works in Logan and is a fantastic poet who wants to take poetry around to the community and show Logan off for being the up-and-coming community that it is, nominate them at Logan Library. So there's a website on here. If you need to have the website, this will be in the back on that counter back there where Chris is sitting with some other people. I hope you're reading tonight, Chris. Yeah, you are. Poetry Festival. Our new Utah Poet Laureate Paisley Reckdahl has put together a poetry festival. It is on April 27th, Saturday from 10 a.m. till 6 p.m. We're going to have pedagogy and performances. I'm going to be performing Shanan, Brock, Ben Gunsberg, Michael Souter at this great event at Westminster. And you should go there just to go down to Westminster because it's right there by the Sugar House area where you can have all kinds of fun things to do. So you should just go. This will be back there on the counter as well, so you can check that out. There's a website. You'll want to be sure to pre-register. That's important, so they know how many there are because they're going to feed you lunch and a reception. Broadsides. As many of you know, if you read for Helicon West, you might be published on a broadside. Tonight we are showcasing poems by Luke Lemon, and we are showcasing a poem by Hunter Henriksen. Hunter's poem is called Petrichor. Do you know what Petrichor is? I know some of you do because you were at the Tutor Practicum today. Others of you just know about weather. So I hope he'll read this tonight in the open mic. I have such a stash of wonderful upcoming events and things that are happening. But I think that's it. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob Coons, and he's emceeing the program for tonight. Remember, we have a sign-up sheet for open mic. Rob will have this for you. Oh, Chad is raising his arm. He's going to sign up. Hop down. By the way, this is uncensored.
Chad, did you want me to sign you up?
Sure.
What is first?
Do I have to write down Chad? Welcome to the Poetry at 3 reading. I just want to make one the creative writing contest winners. The magazine is sponsored by Syncolo, the undergraduate literary journal out of the English department. You can visit us at syncolo.org. We are right at the end of our 7th issue. We will be published soon. We have writers from, we have probably the most diverse group of writers we've ever had. And we have a poet, or we have an artist from Iran. We have folks from all over the world, so look for that. The reading list, or the reading order for today, will go as follows on this handy thing. We'll go Brock Detheir, Britt Allen, Star Coulbrooke, Felicia Rose, Isaac Timm, and then Star and Shanan will read Erin's poems. She's not with us tonight. And then Russ, Winn, Shanan, Ballam, and Brian Cook. And I will have sign up if anybody wants to. So we'll start with Brock.
Okay, this is going to start on a really low note. I always try to find some kind of theme or thread in the poems I'm going to be reading and the ones that are in the book. And there were two obvious threads in the poems that are in the book for me this time. One was nature, and the other was adolescent sex. And my goal generally in reading is to try to get laughs, so you can guess which one I opted for. So I'm going to read you 3 poems that have something to do with adolescent sex. Only one of them is truly offensive, and it's truly offensive because it's about our president, who is truly offensive. So the other 2 are just incredibly embarrassing for the person who wrote them and the person who stars in them, both of which is me. So I'm going to read this trilogy of poems about adolescent sex, and the first one has to be about
masturbation.
Masturbation!
Yeah, Mr. Kubrick. Yes, we've been practicing that for weeks. Whatever. Yes. This is called "My Spiritual Journey Began with a Muffled Moan," and like all classy poems, it begins with an epigraph from Shakespeare. And also, the more I thought about this, I mean, yes, it's about masturbation, but it's also about the great philosophical question of the last 2 millennia, in the mind-body dilemma. And it's also an ars poetica, so it's many things. So the quote from Shakespeare's Sonnet 129, "The expensive spirit in a waste of shame, none knows well to shun the heaven that leads men to this hell." So, alone in my room with a picture of Olivia Hussey as Juliet, that dates me, the bed, a sock, sometimes the velvety under ear of my sister's stuffed rabbit. My right hand would call forth the spirit, and the spirit was willing. I concentrated, as do all meditators, on one image. If not Juliet, a Harcum Junior College student strutting the sidewalk as we drove by on the way to school, short gray skirt and white Angora sweater over breasts that made me want to prostrate myself on the sidewalk. She would never know a preppy kid in a Madras sports coat had spied her from his carpool, then back in the privacy of his bedroom focused his most intense attention on her image and found fleeting transcendence. With such a lofty origin, my spirit noses no one's butt. Guru, godfather, captain, coxswain, or Führer. Instead of heading for Hajj, it stays with my body, the essence of who I am, not a rejection of who I am. No more or less valuable than any other spirit, not so stained as to need the cleansing of self-denial, the exaltation of mantras, the blessing of a man with a funny hat. It seeks no upward spiral, no beanstalk to a higher place. That shyster just wanted to dump the magic seeds and impress his girlfriend by bringing home a cow. Boys do grow up, but not very fast. This next one, well, it tells you right off the bat where we are. It's called scoring. And it might help to know that I went to an all-boys prep school for 13 years. This is in the middle of that. Scoring. At 12, I wasn't sure I knew what second base was. I knew it had to do with touching a girl's breast, but did it count if your hand was on the outside of her clothes or on top of her bra? Skin-to-skin contact made the most sense, but what chance did I have of that? And what if she slapped my hand away? I learned. Someone drew a baseball diamond on a slab of white pressed board Hank left on the homeroom windowsill. Then people began writing next to each face names of couples who were rumored to or claimed to have reached it. Blair and Suzanne, Robert and Martha on first, Hank and Kate on second. Someone added about where the shortstop would be, BT, with Paul and Estelle next to it, and then some blessed classmate spelled it out, bare tit. So both counted, but skin on skin just counted a little more. Of course, I had nothing to write on the board. I thought about making something up, but no one would believe it, and they'd demand to know who the mystery girl was. I watched as names filled the infield, wondering what would happen if the same girl's name appeared twice. No one claimed a home run, at least not on the board. And after Mr. McBride whacked the heads of several classmates with his brick-like Latin book, the board disappeared. But I'd already learned the one indelible lesson of 8th grade, get in the game. All right, this last one, I probably shouldn't read, but there it is. You need to know what, actually I dropped a number of names, but the only one you need to know is Helen Thomas, who was the leader or the most important person in the White House press corps for like 40 years. And she was respected by all the presidents because she didn't take any shit from them, I think. So she was a pretty tough character, and her ghost comes in here at the end. So this is called National Insecurity, and it's in two parts. The first part is the president addresses the press, and the second part is the audience reacts. So the president addresses the press, and I wish I could do a Trump accent, but I can't, you know, so you just have to imagine it, and then I'm kind of puckering up the mouth, you know. But I could do the hair maybe. The president addresses the press. I guarantee you I have big, strong, capable hands. Hands that can drive a golf ball 285 yards. And let me tell you, they're not the only part of me that's big and capable. You want evidence? The fake news press is always whining about evidence. Well, here's your evidence. I give it to you now, my boner. It's a beautiful boner, as you can see. Stands up at just the right angle, straight as a ramrod, and you'd better believe women like to be rammed by it. You may have seen bigger, on a stallion perhaps, or a whale, but you've never seen one bedded by such precious golden hair, one that has been worshipped by women for almost 60 years. And you just wish you could see it in action. Honcho Gringo is mas macho. The audience reacts. Pale and shaking, Sarah Huckabee Sanders wipes the corner of her mouth and puts the trash can back beneath the podium. She later denies saying, reminds me why I'm a lesbian. Jim Acosta describes it as a cheap orange popsicle without the polite wrapper and says, it looks like my chihuahuas. One art critic complains that it was neither symmetrical nor aesthetically pleasing and adds, would probably burn if you lit it. The ghost of Helen Thomas wheezes, there was nothing there. Thank you.
I don't want to read after that. Well, since Brock so expertly had the sex topic covered, I wrote about something else for the first time in my life. Except I didn't really. It's kind of still about sex, but I don't think I say masturbation or name drop or swear. It's fine. So I'm Britt Allen. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so starstruck to be in this poetry group. It's really cool. And I have 3 poems as well. This first one is titled Dainty Dish. Bring your 24 crows to bed, said queen to husband king. I shan't compete, so let them see their king peel back the flesh from me. For just 6 pence I'll let them eat. His royal tongue fillet the rotten pink of wifely meat. Midnight carrion preferred to feast on curdled milk and marital defeat. Oh, my heart's pounding, it's weird. My second poem is titled Mastectomy. Beside my husband in bed, genealogy gnaws at my snowy breast. Men stopped sleeping with my grandmother at 30 after the surgeon took her left breast away, hid the puckered frown of bare chest beneath padded bras where once my grandfather, who bred and fled my father, sucked. The man I love exhales heat and blood and seed. The man I love pumps marrow into our marriage bed, into my timed flesh, even as my grandmother closes her eyes and gives thanks to the knife. And my final poem tonight is titled Inscape. I don't know why I'm so nervous. It's not even weird. It's thinking about Trump's dick. I'm just scared of everything right now. Inscape. Potholes. There are potholes aching under my ribs, jammed by fatherly jackhammers, aching for the vein deep enough to fissure, shatter me into pocket-sized concrete clumps. Years deep, my husband watches me shoot spirits down my cracks, spew pools of vomit and gaping sky. I ask his body to fill the rest. I demand his sex. When the therapist places vibrating nodes in each of my palms, spools me down the tunnel of self, hands purring, left, right, right. A naked child grinds herself to chalk against the walls, rattling gravel in her lungs. She needs to know he didn't mean to hurt her, not really. He knows girls made of stone don't bleed. Thank you.
Oh, you, I'm going to take your picture because you're so beautiful. Wow. Everybody can smile or not, whatever they desire. Oh, gosh. This is so good. Thank you all for being here. Amanda, Among the Bones. I composed this poem during a reading by Amanda Lazader for Helicon West, February 14th, 2019. And Chad, you can tell Amanda that I've revised since I sent you to your copy, okay? Because I'm in a poetry group and we do that, we revise. Amanda, Among the Bones. Premise. 1 year to remember everything. Rattling footbridge, meadow snow, sun on the deer, in waist-high grass, hands on hips. This boy, this lost watch, corrosion. Buried halfway, mounded, all the humans gone to rust, a pile of rags, of sinew, heat-dried skin, no one you can fathom. Looking, you look for Ruby and Valentine, red pout lips, a boy who might live past the last inoculation. You write about bones so your own son arrives and arrives, one dream to the next, then a silhouette, a scraggle of fist, deflection of stride, clamp of iron wrist. This is how the boy will rise into being only months before the end. Oh, beautiful, oh, meadow mother, decades, parse the grass, tread the water, cross the bridge, rising up from buried earth, your prodigal will recognize the bones that parted for his birth. The watch, the bloody rust, the silhouette, this meadow where you found him in a spray of black letters on the pages of your book. My poems tonight are on the theme of mothers and children. I have 2 more. Those weekday evenings after Dad died and Mother went to work full time, we kids aged 9, 11, 13, 2 hours off the school bus, converged on her as she came in the door, set the bags of groceries down, put on her apron, and started to cook. We stood at the stove in that big old farmhouse, trying her scattered attention, her hand on the spoon, on the saucepan, the cutting board, sifting our words, one child at a time, tucking us into her basket of mothering, soft as a cloth over hot rolls, buttery, delicate, our teeth all set for that first hungry bite, imagining how she'd melt in our mouths, give us her undivided self. She was there once and then rarely, so we all converged, we, the last 3 of 9, the decades, and her butter-scented apron tucked away inside my selfish kitchen. This last poem for you tonight is called Fry Street, February. I composed it during the Fry Street Quartet's performance of Franz Schubert and Benjamin Britten compositions for the Late Style Time and Experience concert at the NEMA Museum and Music Series on the USU campus on Sunday, February 24th, 2019. And this poem is dedicated to Rebecca McFall, Robert Waters, Bradley Otteson, and Anne Frances Bayless for their life-altering music, and also for my young friend Wolfgang and his mother, Becca Johnson, for the strength of their love. Fry Street, February. Waves wander in lush circuits of our brains, our nervous systems, pleasant, pastoral visions film over dendrites, atoms, neurons, this music we're inside of together, this room, these acoustics. I sit next to Wolfgang, 13, with his ruler and paper, crossing his legs in the chair, long hair flowing forward. This boy, so fragile, so endearing, for we know his precarious brain waves, every moment a breath hold. Rebecca McFall, violinist, glosses the next composition, Britten's Late Style, describing his grief and his frailty. Then a pause, then the music suffusing the room, and Wolfgang is still, quietly still, head in his mother's lap as she lightly rubs his back, only his feet perceptibly pedaling and flexing to shunt the energy, nervous commotion. But the music is hard breathing, heart-thumping, thrumming, reaching deep and sorrowful, violins crying in keys so plaintive, so clear, so bird-like, full-storied and keening. The violins plink and sing, the cello throat hums, thrums, moans, all hesitate, a silent breath. Musicians hold, then turn the page, another seamless shine of such inimitable sheening. Oh, such pristine, high sound, high and woodbine, stringline, high tine. There it goes, we're all going. We are in this weird place, inside, above, into the sound that is surreal, in the room, of the room, beside the body of each of us, sitting tangibly next to us. Wolfgang, dreaming, lifted in the music with the rest of us, his mother's hand poised, gently, gently in the teeming notes. We are breathing together, audible, our blood, our cells, our souls, art bouncing off the sheen and shoals of sound waves crashing into us, pulling back and washing in again, emotions, deep and moving. We cannot but move to it, hearts filling, sighing, breath, time, rising, a trembling, knowing, being, a lace, an embroidery in the air.
That's a hard act to follow. Hi, my name is Felicia, and I'll read to you 3 poems. The first one, maybe a small background. When I was 9 years old, I rebelled against my secular parents and begged them, and they accommodated. They allowed me to go to an Orthodox Jewish girls' school, the kind where the men wear the black hats and the side curls. And so the thing that you might want to know for that is that married Jewish women wear wigs. So that's what the wig in this poem is about. So this first poem is called Ode to Yocheved. Through tattered lace curtains, morning sun dappled the Mishnah, the Talmud, the Song of Songs. Cast light on 2 Sabbath candles on the dining room table. Tattered pages of Genesis, linked in study, the wigged seminary tutor, slender finger moving right to left like a timeless Torah pointer, and her pious 9-year-old charge. Like studious rebbes, we huddled over Hebrew, scrutinized syntax, deconstructed diction, deliberated diacritics with a reverent eye. Now, in the quiet autumn of life, with the moon gleaming through bare study windows, I hunch over Hopkins, then Nietzsche. I spend these hallowed hours parsing poems, penning elegies for God. This second poem has nothing to do with that. Okay. It's called Harvest, and it's with regard to Ellen Bass's poem, What Did I Love? What did I not love about harvesting chickens? Let me start with the word harvest itself, redolent of champagne-colored wheat fields or a still life with goblet and grapes, but not of 12 barred birds suspended by the feet from a fence post. Wings flailed in my grasp, while Sky, who fears spiders and mice, slit each fowl's stiff feathered throat. Blood splattered onto forearms and face. We plunged the pullets into cauldrons of water and then plucked them bare. I did not fancy the fetid smell of singed fowl, nor did I eviscerate with joy, my bare fingers burrowing into dark, slimy caverns, releasing esophagus and windpipe, lungs, gallbladder, liver, and heart. These organs, inert on the tray, prompted thought of my own ephemeral life. I winced at the dismal remains. And this last poem is very short, and it's because I happen to think that the evening primrose flower is very sexy. Yeah. Okay. It's called Don't Be Fooled. Don't be fooled by evening primrose, that librarian flower, with tight bun, somber mien, stiff ruche of a skirt. By day, she appears blue-nosed as the mark on her name tag, which hangs from her long, slender neck. True to her Greek name, Enothera, she imbibes deep red wine at dusk. Veins swell, and she, a Minoan eruption, unfurls her petals to reveal lush golden pollen deep in the whorls of her bloom.
Could you move this out a bit? So just a little bit. Be careful. It's all right.
Thank you, Shanan.
Technical difficulties. I kind of went more personal with these poems. These are all in some way about the desert where I was from in western Utah. No matter where I go, I seem to not be able to escape it. Can everyone hear me?
Yeah.
All right, awesome. The Cottonwood. In August, most of the leaves wilted, half the trunk deadwood mummified in the blowing dust. The little family graveyard was stone set at angles, riding its bucking roots. The tree came in a mist of seeds, May 1917. Families standing around 4 caskets of poplar. Inside, little bodies, wrapped in quilts, little hands white as cotton, drifting over the fields, and one seed planted itself at a headstone, and it rose and rose, jutted beneath the earth, wrapped its long roots in a thirsty embrace. This is the miracle of the crickets. The Mormon crickets, with instincts cretaceous, hear Zion, the hymns of the grass, win through new leaves, and they wake, rise from graves, buried for years until rain comes. Then they shift through gravel, stretch new legs by the thousands. The desert moves, manna of the gulls, black wave cresting over sagebrush. I've got an epigraph. This poem is called Fuel. I don't worry about nothing, no, because worrying's a waste of my time. Mr. Brownstone, Guns N' Roses. Stuffed between drunk's cowboy hat and painted girl, I pass a bottle of wild turkey for the blonde pressed against the door to my brother at the wheel, and he grins, a skull in green dashboard light. The drumbeat builds as Axel's 747 scream, then slashes riff descending down the pipeline, matching V8 roar, gasoline, cigarette smoke, and from the back seat we scream, "Motherfucker!" The Buick tears out, spitting gravel like bullets against the side of the school. The stereo rolls over to Paradise City. I'm invincible. I am part of this. I throttle a gag reflex. Swallow. It burns all the way down.
Yeah. So Shanan and I are going to try to be Aaron tonight. It takes 2 of us to equal our talent and more. Aaron has 2 poems in this book, and I will read Outside Caliente. Dark clouds draw light from salt sand. We pull over, just watching the rain that dries mid-fall. Let this be how we are remembered, loving as fiercely as a desert storm, light and white hot, dark and purple cool, heat and dust, our hands not ever still, mouths roving, tongue tasting, tan arms drawing light from salt skin, slow urgency, frantic friction, of passing summer.
I love this poem of Aaron's that I get to read. It's Aaron's, not mine, so I don't want anybody to give me credit for it. It's really good. This poem is called Mother's Day. Before you fell apart, I panicked at the thought of you, had looked around our studio apartment trying to figure out where to stick a bassinet, then crib, high chair. Was this why you left my womb in pieces, blood running down the shower drain? Because in a moment of weakness I tasted doubt, did I post an eviction notice when all I meant to do was modify the lease? Did you choose that day to leave? A first and final, fuck you, Mom.
Yeah. That's Aaron.
I think next time maybe I'll just have you two read my stuff too. So I woke up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, and I left for school in a hurry. And I lectured and I did my thing, and in the middle of the morning I looked on my phone and it had a gif of Julian Assange getting pulled out of that embassy, and he's all bleary-eyed and crazy, and I thought, my God, I have Julian Assange crazy beard. And that just says, like, I haven't had time to take care of myself and all this, and it's that part of the semester where it all adds up, right? Where it's all we can do. And so I was doing all I could do. I headed back to my truck after I got done with everything, headed to this event. And as I was walking along campus towards the parking lot, a student stepped in front of me. He was headed my way, and then he took this little hop step, and he stopped me. And I thought I recognized him, and it turns out that he was a student from about 4 years ago, and he couldn't remember my name either. But he said something along the lines of, Russ, when I was in your class, I wrote something full of hate. And I tried to voice my feelings about gay marriage and about homosexuality in ways that were harmful to me and to those around me. And I'm sorry. And I still don't know who he was, and honestly I don't remember the paper either, because I see a lot of hate in papers. It's not uncommon, but that small step means a lot to me. So my poems that I've chosen, two of my three, are about, in different ways, but they're about those small steps, right? Because I think that's where the big stuff comes through. The first one is called Sacrament. It's about my friend and I just walking through a snowy field when we were young. Together we walk across the road, except in this young winter there is no road, just white silhouette lines to remind us where our footsteps belong. My best friend said he's worried that I can't see God anymore. I say I can't see anything in this snow when we reach the field. He'll rebuke me decades later in my dreams, standing black and white in his Mr. Mac missionary suit that hangs off his shoulders, baggy like a robe. He invites me to scout projects and ward dinners, name tags and fruit salad. We haven't talked for years since, but back in the snowfield there's only us and the dark tips of alfalfa in serrated lines. We push for trees. We reach the quiet grove and our boots thread a deep green through the winter white. He digs through drifts to see what's buried. Old tires, sprinkler cast-offs. In the copse we watch the low sunset, steady and cold, flecked with bird call. He prays under his breath and says it is beautiful. I see feather, frost, and deer tracks, and hear long sounds on breezes freed from muffling leaves, and it is beautiful. My dad was Navajo. I'm just about done writing about him, I promise. But we grew up in the valley where the Bear River Massacre happened, and so he was very much kind of made to take that as his identity. And this is one of my last poems about that. And I do have an epigraph too, so. My epigraph is awful. With ordinary good luck, the volunteers will wipe them out. We wish this community rid of all such parties, and if Colonel Connor be successful in reaching that bastard class of humans who play with the lives of peaceable and law-abiding citizens in this way, we shall be pleased to acknowledge our obligations. That is a Deseret News editorial from 1863 regarding the Bear River Massacre. In the valley, the past is something that floats in the river beside you as you walk among tufts of phragmites and hemlock. The cavalry came here, cleared a path with pistols and cavalry swords. The Shoshone fought back with antiquated rifles, spontoons made from chair legs and iron. In the city, Dad sat at sun-blanched diner tables, told old farmers stories of Navajo steel gangs, pounding spikes and hauling iron plates for the railroad. He blessed diesel engines with corn pollen in the way of his father, drawing thin yellow lines of dust as a path to the gods. He spent summers on the railroad and everybody spoke Navajo there. They all hated the white rail bosses and the union didn't understand Ho'ojo, the loveliness of all creation. Dad retired with a hernia and no pension and a name from his friends, Chief. He moved to the city that rests above the valley and became the Indian. In the valley, he drove a light blue Chevy to the field, the river stained in deep shades by morning sun, cows in a knot near the bend, where the cheatgrass ran its tips along the deep, deep current to pray. The river carried the prayer and pollen to the past, to the point where the blood hit the water. My last poem is about growing up in Idaho and blowing shit up. So, a little bit of a tonal shift. This is called Independence Days. It's just about fireworks, really. After school, 5th grade, we left sugar snakes in the road, carbon ash entrails, sodium and glucose growing red right out of the concrete. We dodged Roman candle bursts, wiped the sparks from our shirts, and watched cars roll by between lightings on the highway. Later, we were juniors who skipped Mr. Clinky's econ class, wrapped black cats around paper tanks, and blew them to colorful popping hell. We threw bloom flowers at each other, then spelled the word dick with glowing punks as the sun settled deeper on the walk home. Freshman year, the state outlawed bottle rockets, but we still waged war across the neighbor's lawn after work. Fired multi-shot aerials over his garage and doused the smoke smolder on the haystack with stolen beer in the dark, crouching away from headlights. Later, we really got bored, pulled apart Liberty Torch fountains and Whistling Pete's, made bombs. You want the flash powder over the nitrate. The black stuff burns slow, but the stuff with lots of metal salts packed into an aluminum tube makes a big enough burst to chip concrete. Then we started leaving for college, shaking our heads at the pool table, stained with dextrin and gunpowder, and the last time we lit up, we just threw what was left in a 7-Eleven cup. We topped it off with gas and watched it burn the weed patch near the road. Comets and dahlias shooting off in puffs, the scorch too hot, the flames burning rainbow colors all the way across the front lawn to the house foundation, curling back like a grin. Thank you.
I'm going to read 2 poems tonight. Some of you know this, but I'm going to be writing about this maybe forever. My youngest brother died almost 6 years ago. His name is Dylan Thomas. He drank himself to death at age 24. I've been writing about him and kind of hit a wall and had to sort of switch directions, and so I created a character that is named Thomas. And Thomas has a friend or a brother named Stubbs. And so the 2 characters are Thomas and Stubbs, and Thomas is based loosely on my younger brother, and I wanted to keep writing for him so that he could continue to live in some way. So for Dylan, this is called The Missing. Thomas was leaking inside, a sharp sense that someone was missing. Bubbles of loneliness rose in his blood, and sometimes when he walked alone in the yard, he sensed someone behind him growing like a tail out of his spine. But when he whipped his head, there was only emptiness, its lemony shadow, the magnolia tree just beginning to golden with spring, and the dog staring off in the distance, head cocked as if she were listening to something. Thomas gazed into the magnolia tree's slender latticing of brown and ivory branches, sun brightening every silvery furred flower bud that dotted the tree. They looked like gray mice, but inside them, Thomas knew, the pink and cream perfume of the blossoms dreamed. Then, in the branches, a smudge of movement and a screech owl materialized, sharpening in focus, then almost dissolving. Gray and cream feathers, exquisite as porcupine quills, precisely matching the branches. Thomas did not blink. He shuffled his feet until the owl opened its eyes, gold glitter and gleam, and it was like watching puppies being born, one after another, sliding out in a cascade of blood and water, suddenly there, alive, eyes and ears plastered shut, dragging their slick bodies across the cement, their tiny squeaks, their hungry milk-sweet tongues. With sleepy wisdom, the owl regarded Thomas. There was no pity, no fear. Gazing into the owl's eyes was like staring into two small suns, and in Thomas's brain something was born, an inevitable blossom, sliding in and out of consciousness like a mirage, wobbling. Saturated with spring, the air was sweet but stung his eyes as if he'd been asleep for a long time and just woke up. He floated like a bulb, weightless, in a timeless gold fluid, turning slow somersaults, sensing someone was with him, sealed eyes, skin creamy as petals, black hair floating, a dark corona around his face, lips a rosebud. From his navel grew a slender vine, opening to white magnolia blushed pink. In the darkness, the fragrance draped like a wet cloth across Thomas's face. He felt the missing thing must be inside the tree, inside the owl, inside its eyes, inside its soul. And he saw the soul glistening, elusive as a shadow, in the mushrooms who grew in the grass with flat faces and no eyes. He saw the soul in the throats of crocus where the lace wing twisted, rapturous, around the filament dusted with saffron. He searched everywhere. He waded into the navy blue stream and found larvae rolled in cocoons of tiny pebbles who'd be born again, anew and with wings. He found the dog lolling in the shade and pried her mouth open to examine pink gums above the slight hook of fangs. Thomas lifted her black, floppy lips to inspect each tooth, gazed past the pink-ridged roof of her mouth and down her rosy throat. "Hello," Thomas called, but nothing. He kissed the dog between her chocolate eyes. The dog wandered off and casually dug up a deer's leg from the garden and propped it between her paws to gnaw. Thomas remembered the purple-brown hyacinth bulbs, bland and faceless, that Grandma planted in the fall. Now they sprouted thick stalks of pink stars, their fragile fragrance dazzling. Thomas took Grandma's old rusted shovel out into the far field and began to dig. He dug until his palms blistered, until his back burned with strain, until he made a hole large enough for his body, his own shallow tomb, tranquil, damp, where he lay himself down, raking the soil over his skin until only his mouth and nose were exposed, and he lay there, almost faceless, only the small breath of the quiet soul. He lay there waiting for his brain to leak open and break into white blossom like a bulb. This is about Thomas and Stubbs, and it's called Draco and Cetus, and they are constellations. Draco is a dragon, and Cetus is a sea monster or a whale. So they put these, they made these constellations that represented themselves, the dragon and the whale. Thomas remembered dying. It happened in July. It was late morning. The kitchen was hot, muffled, glaring sun spilling onto yellow linoleum. Thomas was drinking wine to become holy, to make the pain slide away from his brain like a raw egg sliding down a wall. And then the gut wrench, the aching gag and crimson ribbons flinging from his mouth to the floor, a flower of vomit like a lily, like the lilies in the garden, all smeared, bloody-faced, and he remembered stepping toward the lilies, stepping into the garden and slipping, suspended in mid-air, weightless, elegant, his clothes soaked in red. He hung like the red tail of a comet streaking. Then the violent choking, violent sudden, the cracked skull on yellow linoleum, ceiling fan whipping white circle holy, like heaven, like God's vicious eye, sucking him in. How embarrassing to lie in the slippery with no way to move, stuck in the sticky between life and death, black trap like a fly gauzed and suffocating in the black widow's web, with all the sudden people flashing green and blue, greasy red wails, the sirens, the whole world was screams stuffed in his ears, the heavy chest shock, teeth dull, numb, vibrating, and his hair aching, and his fingernails, and how the light seared, branding his eyes shut, stuck and blind and cold, lying naked, not able to cry out or cry or walk or breathe, trapped in a dark, deep, the heavy heart made of marble. But then he forced open his eyes and was back in the twin bed with Stubbs, warm, together melded, holding hands, their sweet Coca-Cola breath mingling, their musky hair a brown corona across their twin pillows, so clean and neat and peaceful beneath the ghost glow of stick-on ceiling stars they had patterned into their favorite constellations. Thomas picked Draco the dragon, and Stubbs picked Cetus, the whale, the sea monster. One spring morning, Thomas stood tall on a bar stool and plastered them up there, while Stubbs laughed and danced around squealing, "Look, I'm a whale," pouring a cup of water over his head. Now in the dark, Stubbs whimpered. Thomas felt the hot tears steaming. "Draco," Stubbs whispered, trembling. "He looks like you," all the dark ribbons coming out of his mouth. The night pressed its hot cloth against their faces. Thomas stared dead-eyed and terrified at the false heaven, gazing deep into the dark until they both saw a brilliant smear of shooting stars, each a luminous wish. Thank you.
Too many people. Hello. I have 3 poems for you today. The first one, I got diagnosed with sleep apnea, and I always thought that the word CPAP was really gross because it sounds like pap smear, and then you put the mask on and you look like an alien. And I decided to try to make a sexy poem about a CPAP, or at least sex it up a little bit, make it more attractive, okay? CPAP. Crystalline spritzer, shots of Appalachian air, white water rafting down my larynx. I forgot myself down in Second City, atmosphere buzzed with laughter and liquor. Strap that mask on, Dr. John, on cartwheels for days. Twist my eye, ride through my hurricane. The second one, I've been dealing a lot with anxiety. Don't ask Justin about it. But it's been a huge issue for me lately. And this poem was what literally no one else has ever done in poetry. They personified anxiety. He's overbearing, that one. Tipping scales at 300, voice of a helicopter. Whoa, wash those hands, filthy mama. People are plague rats these days. He crowds armrests, press shoulders, throats. 1, 2, 1, 2, pick up the pace. You forget to breathe. Pop a propranolol, plug your ears till those wind chimes settle, till he flicks off the lights and slides outside. Get your sleep, buttercup. Alarms at 6. And this last one, again, something that no writer has ever done before. Write about the difficulties of writing. And it's called, I don't know. When I sat down, I'm like, great, I'm doing literally what everybody else has done. But that's what poetry is. You're just, it's fine to write what other people have done because your experience is unique. Solution. Buckets perched on office desks catch rain, drips drowned by clicking keyboards, lamplight cast on spreadsheets, quotas, graphs, bold numbers saying, "You did good, kiddo." At home, fingers tap keys, screen, noise-filled white space. Blinds shut out the snuffed sky. Tomorrow, a bright-eyed night might strike.
Please, one more round of applause for all of our poets. I do have still the sign-up sheet. Chris?
I'll read it, Nate reads.
Yeah. Well,
We run out of time.
if we run out of time, I'm going to hold you to 7 minutes, readers. I'll get my cell phone out and time your ass. If anybody needs this when I sit down, awesome. We will start with Mason, and then Chad, and then Jesse.
Chad.
Bruises for Mama. If you can't beat 'em up, Mama always said. She'd wash my cuts in Daddy's drink once he had gone to bed. My scars would crust, my fingers bled, yet her voice sang like scripture inside my little head. Weeping wounds could never sting, for Mother mended me. Now needle pricks of broken bones don't hurt me when I see that why he don't try and lick me's 'cause Mama raised the warrior that she didn't never be.
Wow.
Chat. Online one time, I know I was over the line. I think that Rob was too. We said that we would come here and have a profanity challenge. We'd see how much profanity we could read at Helicon. So you were over the line as well?
Oh,
Don't remember that, huh? Never happened.
That's a guarantee.
So, kudos to Poetry at 3. And Brian Cook back in the house.
Yeah.
I don't want to do favorites or anything, but yeah, that was good to see you, man. So I started a poem for Helicon West the other day. For tonight, I did. But I'm too afraid to read it. So I'm going to call an audible. That's the kind of the studly way to say I'm going to change the plan. Just want to read something I'm a little more confident about, a little more proud of. And I read this here a while ago, but I've worked on it. Been working on it for a while. And it's called "A Letter from an Antarctic Seabird to His Parents on the Arrival of His First Hatchling." Dear Mom and Dad, hey, I know it's been a while, and I know you are probably dead from the exertion of fledging me, but I wanted to thank you for flying 1,200 miles to this desolate and craggy and shit-smeared island to build your nest of rocks. Thank you, Dad, for displaying your proud tail feathers and giving Mom a shit-stained rock as a weird sort of nuptial offering, which she accepted, and in doing so permitted you to copulate with her by standing on her back. By standing on her back, among the shrieking of 80,000 others of our kind, because so many other males would simply give up, could not hack it, could not fly such distances while remaining so horny. Thank you, Mom, for sitting on me when I was an egg and warming me with your avian radiance while polar squalls hammered at you relentlessly. Thank you both for turning back repeated attempts on my life by our mortal enemies, the skua and the hated frigate bird. And thank you for taking turns day after day to make harrowing sallies for herring and hake to slake my ferocious hunger. Thank you for regurgitating into my mouth. It was delicious, if somewhat bile-flavored, hot and satisfying. Mom and Dad, thank you for living on the edge of death, while I sat wobbling and oblivious, squawking always for more food, more warmth. Because when my feathers filled in, I flew away without a thought of you. I never saw your final hours, stumbling and weak in this ammonia whitewash reek. I went to sea without looking back, but I think you'd be proud of me. I have been to sea these 5 years and learned to fly and swim and dive. Now I'm back, and this desolate isle of cliffs, streaked white like death, is not all as I remember it. I tried to find a rock to make my own offering, but I never knew they'd be so few and so difficult to carry. And I climbed onto the back of my mate, but it was hard to do my part in that deafening chaos where rivals jostle and predators loom and prowl. And now my own downy, clownish offspring squats tottering here on this desolate isle of cliffs, merrily ignorant to her parents' empty stomachs and the seething hunger we brook so she may feed. I see now how easy it would have been for you to surrender to this desolate pile of shit. I see how easy you made it all seem. Thanks.
Hi. My name's Jesse, and this is my poem called I'll Go. I'll go. Poetry, fiction, art. Everyone says, why do you want to do that? It doesn't do anything. It's not a stable life, right? That's okay, I tell them. That's okay, that's okay, that's okay. I'll go, you stay. Under light, built, wired, and powered by Silicon Valley, PG&E, and Edison. I'll go into the dark, where so many you don't know, and whom I don't know all yet, went, and only a few came out of. I'll go into the dark, the tunnel. Keep my light, hold it as it flutters in a glass lantern. I'll go, I'll stay. I'll walk along the dark walls, tending the light. Then I'll meet others who went into the dark. Like my man Nate, with his Kentucky seduction, who can lie and make you believe the stories he tells are yours. And Adrian, the wise, who digs beneath the concrete, the buildings, the parks, and shows you the monsters you were told as a child are not the ones you should fear. Like Michaela, the alchemist, twisting the art with her poetry, making you jump off buildings with one page of her fiction, helping you question everything like you should. Like Kaylee, the protector, who shows her scars, fears, happiness, and takes you with her, holding your hand, with her words, making you feel like family. And like Michael, Buddha of the sublime, who opens your eyes with his starlight poems and speaks fire under his zen. And Carly, my Carly, who stands at the light's edge, but I watch her, ready. When she strikes that match, the flame will be a tower of light. Just you watch, just you watch. Soon that tunnel will show a forest. That forest will show a sky. Then we'll light up more than we intended. And from our light, someone will trail off, tending their own in the tunnel we never thought to go. So yes, I'll go. You can stay with Edison. I'll go with Tesla. What? Didn't you know Tesla was a poet?
I forgot to mention, poetry at 3 Chapbooks are available. It was designed, we need to give a shout out to Ashley Thompson for its design. Books will be available for $3, cash only. And you can see star to order a copy. Next we'll go Aya, Eric, Evan, and Bo.
Hi, everyone. Is this okay, the sound point? Okay, so first thing you need to know is I tend to stutter sometimes when I read out loud, which is great for a poet. I love it. You know, it just makes my life so much easier. Let's see. The second thing is, in Islamic tradition, the jinn are a separate being made of fire, same as people who are made of dirt or clay, and angels who are made of light, right? So that's one thing you need to know about this poem. The second thing is they used to try and sit around the gates of heaven to listen and see what God is saying. Okay, so this is questions for my jinn counterpart. Unseen sister of smokeless fire, have you been sitting in the bowl of the sink watching me shower? Have you marveled at the steam rising from my neck? And when you touched the curve of my ass, did the water droplet hurt, sizzling on your fingertip? And when you lead your lover into my bed once I've left for work, do you linger at my vanity, watching yourself in the mirror, squeezing essence of jasmine onto your pulse point and theirs? And where are the pulse points on your limbs of flame anyway? Did you likewise once anoint yourself with essence of rose to sit by the garden gates and listen to Allah before the sudden fire cast you away with Adam and Eve? And do you hate me for it? And what does she sound like? Or, smokeless, does your sweat smell of sandalwood and sand? And though they be tender, your lover, stroking you first and tracing the Turkish figs of your tits, fresh and swollen, do you still freeze like me, waiting for freeze thaw to break you open? Or does fire, more fluid than water, not know the hardness of dry clay? The second one gets a little dark. My mother-in-law passed away recently, and she lived in North Logan, and that's actually why we came back from Jordan to kind of care for her. So, and it was really interesting for me to be in this position of caretaking, yet at the same time a step removed because she was my mother-in-law, and so not so much, like I don't carry that same grieving, say, that my husband does or that my brother-in-law does. So this is not the poem where you die. My brother-in-law sleeps in 2-hour spurts, screams a muffle into his pillow on the queen-size bed that was your own, stumbles to the hospice bed to lift you out of it. In the room he shares now with you, his mother, sleep unrubbed from his eyes. I stand ready to pull you through the narrow door, push you into the bathroom, pull the wheelchair back out again, and leave it ready just outside. We wait for you in these moments of mid-morning duty, leaving with dignity we still can. The capless bolts of wheels leave grooves in the doorframe. My doing and undoing bear witness to my learning. And when you are ready, there he is again, as I suspect he always has been, easing you back into the chair, pants lifted, alcohol solution sprayed onto your hands. And as the chair rolls a breath beneath you, are you ready now? And as I pull you away, where would you like to go? In this grim game of Tetris, I sit in the living room of this too small house, wait for you to sleep and listen for your call. At times, he paces in the bathroom, looks into his reflection, perhaps, and stifled yells, fucks, and bullshits escape the thin wood of the door. 50-foot oxygen cords, an appendage that follows you around the house, veins we step on and curse at, that twist and bend, get caught under closed doors and reclining chairs, tether you to the new 10-liter concentrator. The walls vibrate with its hum so loud it's killing you. It's killing all of us. Still, you ask for new ice from the store and Louisiana hot sauce when the ice from the fridge tastes too filtered and the soup I made you tastes too bland. And when we've rearranged the room for you, dancing on oft-tangled strings, another throw pillow beneath your lower back, this side table on your right, a scarf over the lampshade to shield your eyes, and perhaps, can we move this candle to the other shelf? You refuse the sleep of Xanax and cold midway yourself in sentences that hold just past your oxygen-deprived memory. I need you to come look again at this broken machine. Behold a life that fights past fighting, a juniper clinging cliffside to a stone and rubble. Behold a son who nurses his mother and waits until midnight to howl at the moon.
Clearly I should have gone first. All right. As Aya said, my mother recently passed away. I've discovered something about myself as a writer. I love to write science fiction for fun, but I come back to creative nonfiction for the stuff that's not so fun. So, this is an essay I'm working on for our writers group. And it's about my mother's path of faith and my path of faith. My parents were both kind of eclectic in terms of religion, and you could say I was too. It's called Pilgrims and Pioneers. That's it. I'm not committed to the title. The epigraph, I have one of those fancy things too, is from a novel called The Gospel of Damascus by Omar Emadi. True, sincere love is of one source, and it always leads to the same place. Summer, 2015. I'm not going to read the whole essay, I'll read part of it. I'm not going to take up everybody's time. You stand there, under Jerusalem's heavy sun, white woven summer hat shielding your eyes, leaning heavily on a copper-toned cane. You stand staring at the wall of faded beige stones, older than your nation. At the hole in the wall, black as night in the bright midday light, a small arched doorway. What are you looking for? We've already been inside. We've crept around the cramped crypt, seen the small nook where they laid him. You didn't like that other place where they laid him, just inside the great doors of the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, within the hulking ancient rock walls of the old city. You shied away from obsequious faith, from pilgrims of the ancient churches, old worlders on hands and knees, blessing the stone slab with their tears, a living foreground to the mosaic mural of the Passion in the deep shadow scented with sage. You stood apart, a Christian, certainly, but not that kind. For you, Mother, Mormon, daughter of Rocky Mountain pioneers, for you, they made the garden tomb. Outside the walls, in the open Palestinian summer, the hot sun cooled by verdant landscaping, cypress and ferns, carefully tended flower beds, air-conditioned gift shops selling postcards and trinkets and recipes for tabbouleh, politically titled Israeli salad. Here, you find familiar comfort. Can you feel it? You ask me. Do you feel the peaceful spirit in this place? You show us that faith is more about sensibility than archaeology. Souvenirs from that pilgrimage accent your house. As I write this, you are 2 months gone, and we are left to dig ourselves out from under your many, many things. There is one useless memento I keep forgetting to throw away, though I've knocked it off the windowsill in the shower and picked it up a handful of times. 2 little tubes of hotel shower gel, labels in Hebrew and English, reading Dead Sea Minerals. Summer, 1994. The The cool mountain evening is filled with scented smoke. Pinewood campfire, sandalwood, patchouli, tobacco, cannabis. People in 2s and 3s wander away to their cars and campers, returning with jackets in denim or plaid or sheepskin, styles 2 decades dated. Hundreds of middle-aged men and women mosey about under the emerging stars, nursing bottles of beer and plastic cups full of wine, bleary-eyed and smiling, full on my mother's barbecued chicken and all the salads, sides, and desserts this world record-worthy potluck could bring together. Their kids and I run around 5 loosely fenced acres. Their dogs give my shaggy border collie more play than she's had in years. Both she and I are a mingled mess of excitement and overstimulation. My brother is off somewhere with a younger group of hippies' children. It's the 70s reunion bash. My father wanders the crowd, lordly blonde beard trembling as he laughs at stories they tell about him and about you, Mother. I am 10 years old. My dog and I have somehow escaped the ruckus. We huddle on the log bench beside the tack shed at the edge of the lawn. Its walls are hung all around with posters and photos of things from an age here revived. George Harrison smiles down at me, a sly faith in his sidelong gaze, long hair and beard falling over dark jacket, jeans, and sneakers, a contrast in chiaroscuro against the shaved heads and white turtlenecks and robes surrounding him. I see you walking toward me on the out of the gathering twilight. Your silvery mane and seafoam tie-dye Lion King t-shirt make you look like a friendly ghost. You sit beside me on your favorite bench and ruffle my ragged hair. You sit beside me and we listen to the impromptu band that formed around the campfire, singing Bob Dylan and Joni Mitchell to the beat of djembe drums and the harmonious chords strummed on a couple of guitars. After a while, out of the blue, someone starts clapping, intoning the Hare Krishna. The guitarist strummed the ancient rhythm, the drummers fall in sync. Suddenly, Hare Hare resounds from the whole gathered crowd, echoing off the cliffs of the high Uintas. I'm sure the neighbors, even at their distance, are startled by this foreign chant disturbing the peace of their little Mormon town in the Camas Valley. It lasts only a moment. After half a minute, laughter and whoops break up the chanting. I watch your face. You laugh too. I wonder how you feel about it. We've been going to church for 3 years now, since an elderly neighbor, your Evelyn, won your heart over and brought you back to the religion of your ancestors. I was baptized a Mormon 2 years ago by my father in a creek off the Weber River. We entered the Salt Lake Temple that same year, dressed all in white. But I remember the time before that. I remember the picture of your guru that hung on the wall of our living room, and the shrine of little statuettes that once adorned your bedroom corner, Krishna dancing with his flute.
I called this one Gamer President. You should play video games instead of golf, because I would much rather pay for a PlayStation than to have to hear about you spending $50,000 flying to Palm Beach, which has the best grass and the right wind, for you to put the lives of the nation on the end of a wooden tee, just to clip it away into the rough, flippantly yelling some curse word because you missed, blaming the citizens because it didn't go where you wanted, insisting they give you more time to do the same fucking thing. Each minute closer to our great nation passing away. I would prefer that you spent 12 consecutive hours in the White House, clicking away at your Razor keyboard, beer cups ajar, making sure you can hear the Oval Office phone ringing, making sure you can hear the missile sirens when they begin. Shut away, never reported on, mumbling your branded vitriol to yourself as your stubby fingers push in 6 keys at a time. But when every evil character in a game reflects the person you are, I imagine that your hands would sweat and your eyes would dart while you play. Because everyone wants that person dead. They want you dead. So you golf. Put your stake in the ground and balance the ball on top. Look at the citizens you refuse to admit you hate. Every terrible thing that you have ever done welling up at that moment when you send the ball soaring again. Right into the trees. Damn, you say, I missed the shot. To make people believe you tried. But in reality, you just had to get that ball away from you.
Yeah.
Hi, my name's Bo. I have a short poem. It's called Making Space.
Put that microphone down a little closer to your mouth. Beautiful.
There we go. And I too have an epigraph. Inside of me there are two dogs. One is mean and evil and the other is good, and they fight each other all the time. When asked which one wins, I answer, the one I feed the most. Sitting Bull. Kill yourself. Not your whole self, but the parts that hurt. Your insecurities, strangle them with paracord. Your fears, shoot them in the head. They don't deserve space in your beautiful, bright brain. Toss your frustrations off a cliff. Feed your anger to the river gators. Take your doubts and stuff them full of lie. Draw and quarter your anxieties. But care for the good ones. Water your hopes and put them in the sun. Push your dreams on a tire swing under the aspen tree. Feed your joys warm chocolate chip cookies. Pet your pride, scratch its belly, and take it for a walk. Nurture, what you feed is what will win. Murder, just remember that some emotions are undead. Sometimes you have to kill them again.
We'll go Nathan, Lena, Olivia, and Mackenzie.
Hi, I'm going to read an old piece I did a couple of years ago. It is called The Barn Door That May or May Not Be Locked. And like Brian Cook, I'm a revolutionary. I wrote about something no one's ever written about, ever. I'm fine. What a cliche thing to write about. Everyone knows what it means when it's said. Help me. Please, can I talk to you without seeming desperate enough to ask to talk to you? I don't want to talk about it. I'm trying to be strong and feel like I'm failing. I'm uncomfortable, but not enough to ask you to change what you're doing. Actually, I am fine. I don't always have to be beaming with excitement. Hi, but I don't really want to talk to you. I don't think the problem is exposure to knowing that I'm fine is nondescript. People know that. I don't think casually asking, how are you today, without actually wanting to get into the emo poetry they're writing is an issue. Nor is the lack of caring the problem. Most people do care. Most people would expend more energy than you'd expect to help someone find themselves in a more bearable mindset, if they needed it, or asked for it. I don't think the problem is that the world makes feeling fine some moral failing that could be remedied if the fine would just exercise more, put themselves out there more, get a new hobby, sleep less, sleep more, hang crystals and herbs in their houses, or magically just will themselves out of some deep-seated depression. Those are problems, but not the problem with fine. I don't think it's a problem with over or under medication. If there was a pill that would help everyone, then everyone would be the same person. Everyone would want the same job that gives you the same amount of money and satisfaction to live on. We would all agree that blue is the best color and that Becky just can't pull off that red shirt. She wouldn't even wear that shirt because we would all be the same. But people are different because our very chemistry is inherently different and our brains are wired from different genes, different experiences, different scars, different food, and different brainwashings. I don't think the problem lies in how much we try to be good friends who honestly want to be support for each other. If we just had more time and energy, we all have our own problems and that may tap us. It leaves us with inadequate funds to pay for someone else's burden. You just have to take care of yourself sometimes. I don't think the problem is drug use or sexual escapades that seem fun at the time or all the time. It's not becoming obsessed with that damn pretty girl that got away or even diving too deep into work or religion or atheism. It isn't like life can only be lived correctly one way. No one really thinks that there's only one way to be happy. It's not for lack of trying or laziness that someone says they're fine. Some people are fine all the time and are okay with that. Others live there and want to scream when all they see is that blank wall day in and day out. People aren't barn doors that are locked and shut away like a shameful secret, or wide open as a gaping wound on display, or for a performance for attention. It's not black and white, but we all know that. The problem isn't the platitudes that offer easy outs, nor is it the science journals that turn people into statistics. It's not a problem with media or politics, though they can all go to hell. And it's not a problem with patience or gratitude or money or music or rain or personality clashes. Maybe there is no problem. Maybe we're all just trying to communicate and do it ineffectively to some degree, but at least we're talking. Talking on a surface level about being fine. So go ahead and ask how someone is. If they say they're fine, accept that there isn't necessarily a problem, but there might be some pain. Sometimes suffering happens despite a lack of problem. Maybe not. Sometimes we just don't want to talk to you, and that's not a problem either. But for the record, a better question to ask, if you care enough to ask, is what can I do for you today to make your life just a bit brighter? Thank you.
I'm a little nervous. This is my first time doing this, so.
All right.
So, the poem I decided to pick it's called Spring. Yellow, pink, and red mixed with flashes of green. The smell of fragrant flowers drifting on the breeze. Leaves rustle in time to a violent approach. Badgers, squirrels, and birds scamper to shelter in ground or bark in twig-covered nests. A streak of lightning, crash of thunder, downpour of rain. Bombard the inhabitants cowering, cluster in the dark, to wait until the siege is done. The soft peal of chimes, pitter-pattering the floor's floor. A faint beam of light, piercing the gray surroundings. To touch not just the things exposed, but those that are hidden, that all may see the beauty which is concealed beneath dead decaying leaves, a tiny seedling just starting to sprout.
Hi, I'm Olivia. This poem is called The Lock. I wish I was delicate as lily-shaped leaves on the trees, or webbed branches stretching across the sky. I wish I was liquid as sunlight, or elegant like a wisp of a cloud. I wish I was unique like the honeycomb tiles lining the floor. I wish I was concrete as a mountain, formidable in its grace, or as beautiful as the valley stunning and deep. But me, I am only a lock on a wooden door, not gold, not silver, bronze, mysterious, empty. Never will I know the gentle breeze of a cloud or the strength of a mountain, only the frustrated grip of a hand as it handles me roughly, wanting to know what I hide, or the people that pass by me never thinking twice. Used, broken, I'm round, not like a lily, not formidable, round. The light illuminates me, masquerading a golden shine, but the only true solace I'm granted in this life is the caress of a key. Every now and then, its visits few and far between, I look forward to its embrace, every morning and every evening, filling me up, its fit perfect inside, secretive and dangerous, like a lover in the dark.
Hi, I'm Mackenzie, and I want you to know that my 1,000-yard stare is real. And this is my first time reading up here, too.
All right.
Okay. So this poem is called What Grows Inside. It's a static that comes and goes, something fuzzy that takes over my mind, like trying to turn the dials of an old radio to get a signal of life, a sign of hope during the zombie apocalypse, when the rest of the world has gone to hell. All that blares out is white noise, shrieks of dead voices flying through the air, caught for a moment before the static comes back, numbing sound. Or like a white mold growing over a half-baked, forgotten piece of bread. The mold turns green, then black, then it devours thoughts and knowledge and memory and life as it collapses in on itself. And all I can do is try to scrape off as much of the mold as I can before taking another bite. Turn the dials again for something more than a scream. Grin and bear it as others smile, thinking that everything is all right again.
Up next, Heidi, Madeline, Chris, and Alyssa.
Hi, guys. This is only my second time doing this, so y'all make me really nervous. Because I should have read first. Okay, sorry. I know them. Anyway.
Welcome back.
Thanks, Star. All right, so this one is called Relapse. The worst part about Relapse is watching the monster of my former self rise from the grave and destroy all the good in my life, piece by piece. Being trapped in the glass prison of my mind, able to see everything other me is doing, screaming myself hoarse for her to stop, listening to my own cries echo back at me, hollow, worthless, unheard, and unheeded. Having bits of my soul wither and die at the pain in your eyes, the pain I am causing because I failed to keep other me from breaking free. Because she reached into your chest and squeezed your heart till it shattered and laughed in your face as you lay dying.
I'm kind of okay with the mass exodus that's happening. This is called Monochrome Shores, Depot Bay, Oregon. Gray clouds string out like wet laundry on weak lines, filtering whatever light pushes through from passive skies. In the distance, an embrace from the gray of solemn, heavy clouds to the blue-gray of hostile, violent ocean that brews chaos in the romance. Battered gray cliffs, centuries to the land, stand rigid against the assault of white waves, white foam, and wind, white from the weakness of the fog. The water breaks down to salty shrapnel. The buildings bear the mark of war. Paint, once alive with impermissible vibrancy, becomes little more than soft iron armor for the fragility of timber and nail. The armor has failed before, leaving ruin, empty carcasses on the shore. Constant rain falls, constant as the promise of the sun, the promise that the rain itself obscures. People dot the no man's land of beach, sand eating away at the dead skin of their feet as they watch the dark silhouettes of sea lions being lifted up into the zoo-like waves. They wear gray sweatshirts, black hats. They find escape in the war around them.
Alright, so I apologize if I screw this up. I don't like reading off my phone, but surprisingly, I don't carry a lot of my poems with me printed out. So this is called Observation Log, November 8th, 2016, aka Cafeteria Galaxy. A universe of identical particle board spheres orbiting under the nebulous fluorescent light, each occupied by the same cluster of fault-lined asteroids, filling their black holes with freeze-dried, gluten-free, multi-processed food matter and expelling trivial gases about the microscopic craters in their lives. I spot one occasionally, a being that goes deeper than the surface, a solitary satellite rotating around their sphere, minding the instruments, ignoring the screens but keeping an eye on the alarm system, attempting to avert an impact, but there's simply too many asteroids. Observing from my station, I lean back from the paddle and take in a deep breath of artificially enhanced air. When no one is trying my frequency, I can simply drift in the wavelengths. Thank you.
Hi,
Alyssa. I know it's late. I won't be too long. Okay, this poem is called Shower for Two. We don't share shampoo because I'm selfish and I want the expensive dirt-smelling shampoo all to myself. I buy you the cheapest swab I can find, vanilla oatmeal scented or maybe as pomegranate. You use the suds that fall out of your hair as a body wash, scrubbing the dirt from the back of your knees with the recycled soap. I think your favorite scent is pine. At least you love the natural tree and the way its needles look in the mountains and in art. Pines look unbreakable, although my parents lost 9 during a windstorm. Still, the pine tree stands for you, mountain man. I was named after the alyssum flower. In Greek, alyssa means curing madness, though we both know that between the two of us, I am more likely to rage. You say you like tattoos, and I doodle an alyssum intertwined with a pine tree, and you think about tattooing it down your forearm or bicep. You don't. You say your arms are too skinny, tattoos are too bold, but maybe you will one day. You will scrub the pores of your arm, water rinsing over the pine, a spring rainstorm that smells nothing like oatmeal, because I will think to gift you a 2-pack of forest-scented shampoo and body wash, and you will say, alyssum, alyssum, alyssum.
Looks like we have time for a couple more.
Well, we need to be done by 8:45.
8:45 on the dot.
Okay.
So Christian and Dylan will go those that far.
My name is Christian, and this poem is called The Third Eye. An uncanny eye dangling from the dried socket of a rotting bird, only the eye twists, tangling itself in sinew and fibers, searching for a way out. So it turns inward, barreling into the brainy chasms that it once rotated on. It's here that the eye is lost, staring at its own image, as if the other eye had turned to the very same stones, looking back through the meaty mess. Tunneling through meshed hairs of dust and debris, pieces of forgotten matter that once found meaning and reason. The eye reaches a window through which the other eye had once seen. A new perspective, lighting blackened and narrowed passages, routes and roads that were foreign, tangling and twining. Wrestling with the notions of images the eye had always known. Free, to worm through new channels of escaping interest, to climb and surpass the barrows and knolls it knew in life, the dimly lit shanty of the buzzing phone line nest, the musk and haze from the barn-top sanctuary, the rusting orange elbow of the junkyard scrap. To now, the peaking tree cast long over the valley's birth. This shade saw the world and changed light. This shade was brilliantly blinding, invasively so, spotlighting cracks and crevices that had never seen day. Shining, glaring, blaring, impossible to ignore. Gulping the drought of the desert, the eye's shifted view, melded from the ken of its own designation, flopping to one side, the slamming eye finds an angle to which it can conceive of the socket it previously called home. So distant now, across the matted feathers and cracked beak of this larva-ridden corpse, the seat it spent its life in, laid bare before creation. But for one moment's notice, at the edge of all matter, the eye saw itself, crooked over a thin sheet of cheekbone, an uncanny eye dangling from the dried socket of a rotting bird.
Ooh, we gotta be fast. This one is called Smaller Than Life, and I do have an epigraph, so. I attempted to rise, but was not able to stir. I found my arms and legs were strongly fastened on each side to the ground, and my hair, which was long and thick, tied down nigh the same manner. I likewise felt several slender ligatures across my body. I could only look upwards. The light offended mine eyes, but in the posture I lay, could see nothing except the sky, from Gulliver's Travels. I feel so small, facing against them all, tied up like a steer, yet to be branded, deserted on an island, left alone, with people that can't understand my tongue, who are just as ready to see me fall as you were ready to make me feel small. Though I am tall, with hair past the palm trees, these tiny voices flood in with tears. There's an unlovable lump between your ears. At night, where are the edges of the world? Are they ahead, behind, between my eyes, towing the line of what is yours and what is mine? Meeting you in my head isn't the same as the lines you fed me when there was daylight. Not what was said, but the way you jammed a fishing hook through the hole in my head. Where do I start and where do you end? How long will we be conjoined by these threads? What's the distance between the living or dead? Sinking miles, drowning years, your smile, my fear? What's the measure of distance from you to I? Our hands just inches, words only seconds, to reach you and finally set this right. But understanding takes time, and certain lines, I don't cross yours and you don't cross mine. Our past, sunken so deeply into me, merged like the steady beach and formless sea.
Thanks, everybody.